camera rolling. Maybe a little bit up.
Sort of half and half? Okay.
You can read the stuff.
Today is October 23rd, 2023. My name is Natalie Mann and I'm interviewing Mark Joffe for the USC Shoah Foundation. The interview is taking place in Kibbutz Shfaim in Israel, in English. Yeah. So, Mark, first of all, we wanted to thank you for agreeing to interview, and anything you want to share with us. And if you want to stop at any point, you can stop. So thank you again. It's really important. Could you start by introducing yourself, give details like your name and your age and where you're from?
Sure. My name is Mark Joffe, age 71, from Kibbutz Kfar Aza at the moment. At the moment in Kibbutz Shfaim, just north of Tel Aviv.
Can you tell us about yourself in general before October 7th?
Yes, I made Aliyah to Israel in 1986. I lived in Kibbutz Gvulot in the Negev until year 2000, and then I came to live in Kfar Aza with my wife and 3 young children who I raised in Kfar Aza, which is 2.5 kilometers from the Gaza border. So they were raised in the last 20 years of the conflict in our area. They now all live in Tel Aviv, and we're both retired educational workers and live in Gaza.
Can you take us back to October 7th, morning of October 7th? And tell us how it is that you survived and you're with us today, thank God.
All the houses that were built in Kfar Aza have a safe room. It's completely obligatory, and all the older houses have had a safe room added to them. So we were woken up at about 6:30, I guess, in the morning by a rocket alert, something that hasn't happened lately. But we're very well used to jumping very quickly out of bed and running for it. We have about 10 seconds between the alert and the rocket falling or interception. But anyway, we don't wait. We simply run, close the door, which is what we did. We heard the explosions of something. It's difficult to tell whether it's a rocket falling or an interception of the Iron Dome system. We didn't wait the required 10 minutes because we're used to knowing that there's really no need. We left the room. And then I realized that we're close enough to the border to hear the rockets being fired. The big ones make a noise like a plane taking off.
Wow.
And one could hear that there was a continuous barrage of rockets being fired from the strip, and so we turned the television on. And on the television, part of our defense system is to have automatically to turn up on the screen the names of the towns or the villages in the country where there is an alarm going off. And there was a constant list of names going up. all over the country, which was
Like different areas. Just
yes,
red alert, red alert,
red alert going off with a constant, ongoing list of an unending list of names going off as far as the center of the country, the Jerusalem area, the Beersheba area, Ashdod, Ashkelon. However, it was something that has never happened before. To this extent, and not as a first wave of attacks. Sometimes it is something like it's happened maybe in the middle of a war, but nothing like this. And then I started hearing lots of shouting outside, somewhere in the area of our house, which I interpreted as being a sign that the rocket which had been fired towards us had fallen on one of the houses in the area, because this had happened before. So I quickly got dressed to go out and help, which is something that we've done before. With we've already had rockets falling on most of the houses around us, not on ours, luckily. And I was just about to leave the house when the automatic weapon firing started.
Do you know what time this was around?
About 7 in the morning, I guess. Not at all clear, apart from the fact that automatic firing in the kibbutz has never happened before. And I don't have a weapon in my house. I'm not part of the too old to be part of the group that defends the kibbutz. So we did a quick turnaround and went back into the safe room, closed the door. And that's about it. We stayed there until basically, apart from 2 small excursions out of it, we stayed there until we were rescued at 2:30 in the morning. That's about 18 hours later.
How did you keep in touch with everyone, knowing what's going on?
We were very lucky in that we had electricity the whole time. We learned later that some people spent all those same hours without electricity, which meant they had no communication with the world and were in the dark, which must have been a horrifying experience. We had, first of all, we opened up the laptop and dialed into one of the news channels. We had our WhatsApp group for our local neighborhood, which very quickly became active. So we could work out what was going on in our street, our 2 streets, basically. It has 42 families in it, in our neighborhood WhatsApp group. We basically discovered that there were no soldiers in our kibbutz for at least the first 6 hours. I mean, there were no reports of soldiers going on, just Hamas terrorists. Hamas managed to get into 6 or 7 of the houses in our road, which is over half of them, because people were on live WhatsApping that the Hamas were in the house, was simply shooting up the house and trying the handle of the safe room to open it. And in 2 cases they managed it. The families, their last message was they're getting in, they're opening the door.
Wow.
And then that was their last message. In 2 cases they managed it, in other cases they didn't. Those families, their houses were entered 2 or 3 times in those hours by Hamas terrorists that were apparently roaming very freely in the kibbutz, doing whatever they wanted to without. At about 12 noon, there started being evidence of soldiers being in the area.
How? How do you know?
Because the same people in their WhatsApp group started saying that there were people in the house who apparently were not terrorists.
Also, they could hear Hebrew or something?
Exactly, you could hear Hebrew, but it was not at all clear whether there were terrorists speaking Hebrew trying to get them to open the door. So no one was being prepared to open the door even if they heard Hebrew. There also started to be sounds of fighting going on between people, which was obvious that it was. Then we started hearing sort of armored vehicles moving around in the area, which was obviously not the terrorists. They didn't have armored vehicles going on. We now know that there was a tank and an armored personnel carrier in the kibbutz fighting under very difficult conditions. So all we had in one hand the sort of evidence of what we were hearing in the street, explosions and firefighting going on around us. On the one side, our local WhatsApp group. At some point, we joined on to the much larger WhatsApp group of the second-hand shop of the kibbutz, which had at that point about 450 people in the WhatsApp group, which my son ran from Tel Aviv. Lots of people started joining it, and to make sure that these were not Hamas terrorists trying to gain information, and he interviewed everyone who wanted to join it by a video conversation.
So he's sitting in Tel Aviv.
He's sitting in Tel Aviv, and anyone who asked to join this WhatsApp group, he had a video conversation with them.
Wow.
To ensure that they were really an Israeli who wanted to join it for good reasons and not just someone who was. This group became, I don't quite even know how to describe it. There will be Hollywood films made on the basis of this WhatsApp group. Went through various stages of evolution, of in the beginning being cries for help. People's houses were being burned, people were being slaughtered, and sending WhatsApp messages for help. And then people asking what's happened to other people, you know.
Why aren't they answering?
Why they aren't answering? They've stopped answering. They're wounded and they're bleeding to death. Go and help them. Lots of people in Gaza died because they bled to death because no one managed to get to them, apparently. And then it became a group of sort of directing people to go and help other people, sending coordinates of houses where terrorists have been seen. And then it got to a very sad stage of people sending lists of names. What's happened to all these people? Where are they? Why haven't they been saved? But the messages were coming in at a rate which was not useful to anyone, if you saw what I mean. It's like a WhatsApp group where there are so many messages per minute that they disappear They disappear at sort of a rate that you can't keep up with them. And I'm not sure that anyone in the army was actually getting any of these messages. There was no actual useful communication between the citizens who were crying for help and the army who was trying to save them. I think one can imagine that there's no way in those sort of situations that the army who was fighting to save people can be getting these communications from the civilians who are sitting in their house sending WhatsApp messages out. This simply was a complete lack of communication between these two sets of people. And all of this, at some stage I closed our laptop down because it was simply too difficult to watch what was going on.
When the news started
The
coming in
news
of what was
became
actually
simply
happening?
because it became obvious that it wasn't just us; it was happening all over, and we started realizing
In
this
other
was
settlements?
a sort of an invasion. You know, when we started reading, okay, the beginning one feels okay. There's been the sort of scenario that one could imagine is that a small group of 2 or 3 terrorists has got in, and it'll be dealt with soon. That's what one believes. And then, okay, then it's not a small group; it's a big group, but it's just us. And the army will come and will save us. And then when you realise it's not just us; it's everywhere, and the army isn't coming in to save us, it becomes sort of an unbelievable sort of scenario when you start realising that it's a lot bigger. It's an unimaginable scenario, and if that's what's happening, then maybe no one's going to come and save you, because it should never have happened, and you can't imagine what is going to happen. You're just sitting there and waiting. But the army did come.
When?
We have a couple of fairly high-ranking retired army people in our neighborhood, and they started being in touch with army people. And about somewhere in the middle of the night, they started saying that the army is going to evacuate our neighborhood. And they started going to our road, house by house, and knocking on the door and telling us we had a couple of minutes to grab a few things and to leave the house. They gathered us together in the dark in the front of one of our houses at about 2 at night, I think.
Outside the house?
Outside the house,
Wow.
surrounded by soldiers who were all taking up firing positions around us, because they clearly were not sure that we were safe. It was like you could still hear firing going on in the distance. And then they marched us round to a parallel street and moved us into one of the houses. And then they did the same in a parallel street until they had about, 30 families there. There should have been 42 families in these 2 streets. But 2 have been killed, and some maybe were not there for this weekend. And other families had got guests, so I don't know how many people were there. There were probably 30 something families. Far too many dogs for my liking. We started fighting with each other in the house.
Really? Wow, they must have been so
It was
tense.
You had to be a very avid dog lover to enjoy this situation.
Wow.
And then when they were sure that they'd evacuated these 2 roads, they formed a sort of battle formation around us, asked us to be quiet as we possibly could, and we walked a kilometre from there, I guess, out to the petrol station and the entrance to the kibbutz, while the soldiers, in the dark, every now and then stopped and sort of knelt down and surrounded, soldiers at the front, soldiers at the side, soldiers at the back, and us in the middle. And there we just missed a bus which left the petrol station, and we were told the other buses would come for us, and they didn't, and eventually came 4 army open trucks which we were loaded into, and we were eventually taken to Netivot, which is a local town. Put into the sports hall on mattresses to rest for a bit, and eventually came here 11 hours after we were evacuated from our safe room. We arrived here.
Wow.
For most of those hours we were without communication because the telephones had basically run out of power, and when we got here there was still fighting going on in the kibbutz. It took nearly 2 or 3 days.
Sunday and Monday.
Yeah, sometime, I'm not really sure. So the personal story of the safe room and the evacuation sort of ends there, but it's going to carry on for another, I don't know for how long, because we haven't really got a house. We have a house. It turns out that our house is completely unscratched. It's not damaged in any way.
And the houses around you?
Houses around us, some of them are destroyed completely, because after we were evacuated, it enabled the army not to continue to defend our area, which was partly why they did it, I guess, apart from saving us. But that also enabled the terrorists to use our area, I guess. So battles continued in our area. So several of the houses are quite destroyed, which wasn't the state they were in when we left them. People who left their house when it was quite okay and locked the door, and the house is now burnt out, a shell of what it was. Our house is okay at the moment, but we're in an ongoing war, so I have no idea what it will be like if we go back. And the whole community is waiting to see what will happen, because we're still a long way away from this issue being settled. So it's basically beginning. We're still in a week, 2 weeks of. We still have funerals ahead of us. One of the families who were killed in our road, their funeral will be tomorrow. That's 2 weeks after, and we keep asking ourselves how and why it took so long for their deaths to be announced and for their funeral to happen, and what, in other words, what happened to their bodies.
That they couldn't identify them in a
I
regular
don't
way.
like to think, because I know exactly when and where they were killed, and I hate to think why they're having a simple ceremony of their death tomorrow and not a funeral, which raises lots of questions about what was done to their bodies. Which is just speculation on my part, but it's not.
Yeah. But because a Jewish funeral, usually you'll have the body wrapped and there's no coffin, and
it's a situation for me that raises so many questions. Not questions, but it brings up so many things. Really, and on a personal level. First of all, I find myself unable to cope with the situation. Not. I don't manage to go to any of the funerals. I just can't. I tried to begin with, and I discovered that emotionally I was just unable to do it. So I decided the best way the only way I could cope with it is not to do it. I can go around to visit people during the week of the Shiva. In any case, at the funeral, they don't know that I'm not there or I'm there. There's so many people that it's, and even then, here there are so many people, and there's a complex mix of so many emotions here that it really is so complex to try and go through it. So it's a continuation of the thing, and for me personally, it's very complex because of my own personal history, which is also mixed up with in a complex way with the Holocaust as well. My first visit to Israel was on a seminar organized by a Holocaust survivor.
How old were you?
Quite old, 30. I first came to Israel in 1982, so I was 30, looking for my Jewish identity. And I found it through Sarah Elkes, who runs a foundation in the name of her father, who was the leader of the Jewish community in the Kozlov ghetto. And she founded she founded a foundation for the memory of her father, where she took her students and for students of community work and social work in England for a tour of Israel. And I latched on, and this is how I came to Israel. And then when I was a teacher in Ashdod, they have as part of their Holocaust Memorial Day, they have a memorial room, and one year they dedicated it to Yochanan Elkes was his name, I think. And then I went and told them all that he was responsible for me for being in Israel, because his daughter was the one who brought me here. And I became a celebrity for a day, as someone who actually knew a Holocaust survivor. And,
Wow.
But that's only because of my age. And this place here was also the place before that, a couple of years before that.
Shfaim, where you are now?
Shfaim was the
Where you've
first
been
place I set
evacuated
foot on in
to.
Israel.
Really?
I came here with my girlfriend the first time, and we flew to Ben Gurion, and the first night we spent in this hotel.
Wow.
So, yes. There will be lots of interesting experiences being a refugee, I can imagine. And then it all adds up to my my grandfather's experience of being a refugee from Lithuania, and his father's experience of being born in South Africa and ending up in England, and my experience of ending up here. I mean, I've always related my Jewish identity of being roaming around the world, and I'm just hoping my children stay here and don't keep roaming.
So it hasn't changed
No.
for you in terms of Zionism and...
Oh, that's another question, Zionism. No, as far as Israel concerned, no, I don't
This is
see
your
any other place to be in terms of
as a Jew.
in terms of it has an enormous if I think about my needing to be in a place which has mashmaut, meaning, that my life will have meaning, what I do in it has meaning, this is the place. But I won't go into Zionism at the moment and what's being done in its name, because that's an entirely other different question. But certainly, no, I've never thought about leaving Israel. I wouldn't do that, I don't think at all. And I've never have had any problems about being in a place which is dangerous, because everywhere within Israel's borders is dangerous.
Dangerous to be in London today, or New York, or
Yes.
Paris.
Yes. So,
Do you have any pictures you want to share with us, or maybe like scroll through the WhatsApp group or something? Is that anything you would?
I think one of the things that for instance, that we had to do during the whole time we were in the safe room was send a message to my eldest son every 15 minutes that we were okay. Because he, for instance, was finding it extremely difficult that we were in the situation we were at. And
He lives in Tel Aviv,
he's in Tel Aviv.
and he's the one that runs the thrift
No,
shop?
the middle son, the oldest son is you could say, I mean, I wouldn't want to put a label on his situation, but he's quite post-traumatic about. All of them have been affected by living and growing up in Kfar Aza. He did his army service in the tank corps, and one of his most difficult experiences was in one of the larger small wars between Gaza, having all his friends being called up to serve in the tank corps in Gaza, and he wasn't called up. And he was completely devastated by the fact that his friends were in Gaza in tanks and he wasn't, but also with the knowledge that he couldn't do it. He was terrified by the knowledge that he was going to get called up and that he couldn't do it. And at that point he realized that he had to stop his reserve duty because it was tearing him apart, the thought. And while we were in the safe room, he was having I don't know what he called a breakdown, but he was so terrified by what we were going through that he insisted that we send him a message every quarter of an hour that we were still alive. And we did. Even if it was just a small WhatsApp message or something. And if we didn't, he phoned us up immediately. And there was a small gap of when there was a small gap of about an hour in the middle when we didn't do that. And for all from what his wife says, he was in a complete breakdown at the time. And one of the things that we have to do here is to tell our 3 children that we're fine, we're surrounded by people and we're okay, and what they have to do is get on with being with all their friends, because all their age group going to funerals and they all know so many people who have gone through tragedies, and they themselves are finding it so difficult. And he especially has had friends who so that one message, that one picture of from when we are trying to make sure that he knows we're still alive. And the thought of, and the one time I did leave the safe room against all my wife's explicit orders that I mustn't do it, was to go and get the charger for the phone so that I could keep being in touch with him. And I kept saying to her that there's no one in the house. I know there's no one in the house. Just let me open the door and go and get the phone charger. And she wouldn't let me open it. And eventually I decided that even though she was going to have a breakdown if I did open the door, he was going to have a breakdown in Tel Aviv if I didn't get the charger, and I was going to have to decide that the most important thing was to open the door and go and get the charger. And then going, so we managed to do that and keep in touch with everyone. Yes.
Listening to some kind of message for people, whoever hears this interview in the world, from now and forever. Do you have some kind of message, some kind of thing you'd want them to understand and take from this interview?
I still believe that violence isn't the answer to anything. That everyone in the world are equal. That there needs to be a place in the Middle East and in this land for Jews and Palestinians to live together in this land. That's my basic feeling. Always has been. Even though what's happening now, that's the only solution in the long run. With all the difficulty that I can't see any other solution. It's a simple message there. You can't make peace by killing people. but I haven't got any. I haven't got the solution.
Thank you very much. That's it. Do you want to show the videos of you